A Slayer remembered. Gotrek has returned. The Slayer whose shame turned him to seek his doom in battle has outlived the death of the old world after spending millennia keeping chaos from the gate. And it has broken me in a multitude of ways. To start with, let me explain. I first came across the duo of Felix and Gotrek in September 1992 in the second half of a tale named The Skaven's Claw. Set beneath the city of Nuln, it was a rip-roaring adventure full to the brim with grim, bleak humour and glorious, gory swordplay. As I'd been reading the dour, bloody, and oddly sexualised Conrad series, or the high-lit concepts of the swords and parody classic Drakenfels, finding something more akin to a fantasy Errol Flynn than the gothic grimness that was the GW Boxtree output. It was not much past that point that I discovered both Wolf Riders and Ignorant Armies, short story collections that held yet more Felix and Gotrek goodness, deftly penned by one William King. Around there, I discovered Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and thus the origins of our heroic pair. How Gotrek had pulled Felix from underneath the horse hoofs of the Militar after, as a young academic, Felix Jaeger had been caught in the window tax riots. How Gotrek had once committed a deed so shameful he had undertaken the Slayer's oath and set off into the world to find his doom. King brought a humanity to the duo, even when Gotrek's sheer stubborn otherness was front and centre. Through Felix's eyes we saw the shame and the guilt, but also the ego and the thirst for fame and for battle that drove the world's least successful Slayer. Towards the late 90s, a collection named Troll Slayer was released as part of the Black Library's opening publication salvo, containing both tales old and new, written to match the style of those 80s era tales. Followed up in quick succession came Skaven Slayer, Demon Slayer, Dragon Slayer, and so on, ending as it did with the simple titled Slayer. Throughout the series we changed from William King to Nathan Long with Orc Slayer, and then to David Geimer with Kinslayer and Slayer. Short stories along the way provided by Josh Reynolds. We met characters that started as one-note archetypes, growing into multifaceted people that you could not help but come to love. Max the Wizard, for example, the pinnacle of the love-smitten just-out-of-university trope, became a deeply tragic but unstoppable force, tortured into a maturity he was never meant to experience. Ulrika Magdova, a Red Sonja alike from the borders of Kislev, became not only one of the biggest failures of Felix and Gotrek, but also one of their biggest threats, although not an entirely malicious one. The other Slayers, Snorri Nosebiter, honestly one of my favourite tragic tales in fiction, Malachi Malikson, the engineer without peer, a genius with no limit to his madness, and a Slayer without reproach. Felix's family, the Merchant Jaegers, a collection of fear-filled social climbers that would draw sharp contrast between Felix as he is and the life that he planned to have. The list of characters that came and went, and then returned again, throughout the series is numerous and deserving of its own musings. The series travelled the old world, from Altdorf to the Border Princes, from Albion to the home of the elves, to Lustria and all the way back again. They meet and insult some of the most famous and world-shaping characters of the old world, Teclis, Alariel, Karl Franz. They fought against the Chaos Excursions multiple times. They managed to accidentally inform the rise, fall, slight rise, larger fall, sideways rise of Thanquol, the greatest Grey Seer of all Skaven history, who might have actually taken Nuln if not for our friendly, murder-happy pair. Not to mention managing to kill each and every version of Bone Ripper, the strongest beasts of bodyguard the Skaven race could muster. Also, they went to Mordheim. The Slayer series became synonymous with the old world, intertwined in a way that no other Black Library series managed to do until the Horus Heresy started in 40k. and due to that, the end times brought down the blade on the tale of Gotrek and Felix. It was a true ending. There was no epilogue where people danced and sang, no final battle where heroes triumphed. It ends as it began, small, sad, and Felix writing in his journal. Writing as the old world died. With the dawn of the Age of Sigmar, the landscape changed. The boots in mud feel of the old world was replaced by something more high fantasy and brighter. Over time, with the release of the Soul Wars, a certain darkness began to creep back in. The grim and gothic nature of the old world was there, in the corners, over there, behind the statues. Nagash, Lord of the Undead, had made a stake into the mortal realms, his triumph once again snatched away by unforeseen Skaven, alongside other familiar names, mutated as they may be. And Gotrek returned. I don't intend to spoil full parts of the stories from here on out, but I will be touching on scenes that if you have not experienced as yet, I would offer caution before continuing. At this time, I am yet to read Ghoulslayer, but instead I wish to speak about Realmslayer from here on out, the audio drama series with none other than Brian Blessed as the titular Slayer has had 2 releases at this point, Realmslayer itself and its sequel, Blood of the Old World. It's worth mentioning that I had misgivings about Blessed as the dour and shamed Gotrek. Blessed is known for his larger-than-life performances, so loud, so full of life, and Gotrek has, for the most part, always held a sarcastic inward character. I should not have been worried, as Blessed delivers, giving Gotrek the rage and sadness, the ego and shame that he always had. Gotrek comes to life here in a way I never thought possible. The sheer joy in his voice as he witnesses a creature far more vast than could have ever existed in the old world, the timber and disgust when he discovers fire slayers and the mercenary ways they have taken to. The moments where he forgets and speaks to Felix instead of whoever he travels with at this point. The hatred he bears against the gods, and the grudge against his own god for what he sees as betrayal, a lie unbefitting of his kind. The conviction that if he finds Felix a Stormcast, he will annihilate the stain that being one of Sigmar's chosen warriors to the life of heroism and loyalty that Felix had. The heart-wrenching choke when he accepts he can never return and he will never see his friend again. The wish he could have let Felix know that he was a friend. The shame that he, Gotrek, to keep chaos out of the old world with a millennia of warfare in the true realm of chaos, had failed. Realmslayer works its way through the mortal realms beautifully, exploring concepts ranging from the Duradin races to the Silver Towers, introducing each one in turn with enough to hook the listener, but never allowing it to outstay the welcome. Gotrek's response to the Seraphon is one of outright hilarity, and then amusement, and then a certain amount of kinship. He experiences the Sylvaneth with outright hostility, being as they are a mixture of 2 of his 3 most hated creations, trees and elves. The third one being boats. At one point, whilst travelling through Shyish, Gotrek vanishes each night from the story to return the following morning. It becomes obvious that he's managed to make contact with a spirit from his old life, and when we discover he has been conversing with Snorri Nosebiter, what starts as a humorous moment of joy for Gotrek making that connection, the history between the 2 comes crashing in, the shared shame and Snorri's death. You feel the weight as Gotrek considers his actions, but never once says the words, never once allowing them space in his mind. Snorri, as lost in death as he was in life, has moments of clarity, but with his death has cleansed his shame. With the second tale, Gotrek has become obsessed with finding his way back, to die with his companions and with the world that was. as he gets closer to that very goal. The final moments of Slayer replaces music with Felix's voice, speaking the words he wrote then, Gotrek becoming more tortured. His battle there, against a wonderfully modernized enemy, is one of both physical prowess and allowing acceptance. One that, once the choice is made, Blessed manages to imbue Gotrek with nobility to shoulder this new shame. In a way, much like the conversation with Snorri, this elicited a real emotional reaction. This is not a replaying of who Gotrek was, but a true continuation, and the journey to return to this new point has been an utter joy to behold. Welcome back, Slayer. You've been greatly missed.